There comes a point in every person's life where the weight becomes too much, the expectations, the responsibilities, the disappointments, the pain that keeps replaying in the mind, all of it starts piling up. And most people, instead of slowing down, try to act stronger, louder, tougher. But Buddhism teaches something completely different. True strength is born in silence, not in struggle. When life feels heavy, you don't heal by running harder, you heal by stepping back, going quiet, and listening to the truth inside you. The truth you've been ignoring. Today you will learn lessons that will help you reconnect with yourself when everything feels overwhelming. These lessons will show you why the greatest healing begins the moment you stop performing strength for the world and finally sit with your own soul. Silence shows you the wounds you've been avoiding. Every time life becomes overwhelming, your mind goes into survival mode. It tries to protect you by keeping you distracted and busy, so you don't have to face the deeper pain sitting under the surface. You scroll through your phone for hours, jump from one conversation to another, overwork yourself, or pretend to be okay even when your heart feels heavy. You tell yourself you're strong, you tell others you're fine, and you convince yourself that ignoring the pain will make it disappear. But the truth is, every unprocessed emotion waits for the quiet moments to reveal itself. And that is why silence feels uncomfortable for so many people. Because the moment the world becomes quiet, the truth inside you becomes loud. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is honesty. It takes away all the noise, all the distractions, all the excuses you hide behind, and gently brings your real feelings to the surface. When you finally stop running and allow yourself to sit in stillness, something powerful begins to happen. You start seeing the things you've been avoiding, the heartbreak you never healed from, the disappointment you brushed off, the anger you suppressed, the sadness you told yourself to get over. You realize how exhausted you truly are from carrying emotions you never allowed yourself to feel. You notice how long you've been pretending to be strong while a part of you has been quietly breaking. Buddhism teaches that suffering expands when you ignore it. When you run from your wounds, they follow you everywhere. When you silence your emotions, they grow heavier. But the moment you turn toward your pain, with awareness, not fear, not resistance, just awareness, something shifts inside you. The suffering begins to loosen its grip. The emotions that once felt unbearable begin to soften. Silence creates a safe space where your pain can finally breathe, where your heart can speak, and where your mind can understand what you've been carrying all this time in silence. You no longer hide from yourself. You finally hear the truth your soul has been trying to tell you for years. And once the wound is seen clearly, it loses its power to control your life. This is how healing begins. Not by being stronger, not by pretending, but by gently allowing the truth to rise in the quiet space you create for yourself. Silence separates your energy from the noise of the world. You absorb more from the world than you realize. Every conversation, every argument, every expectation placed on you, every piece of negativity directed at you, it all becomes part of the load you carry day after day. You move through life picking up emotional dust from people and situations, and without noticing it, you begin to confuse that dust with your true self. Suddenly, you feel tired without knowing why. You feel anxious even when nothing is wrong. You feel drained even after doing nothing demanding. This happens because the noise from the world slips into your inner world, blurring the line between what is yours and what never belonged to you. Silence is the doorway back to your own energy. When you go silent, it's as if you step out of the storm and into a quiet room where everything becomes still. In that stillness, you begin to see how much of your emotional weight came from trying to meet other people's demands, trying to keep up appearances, or trying to carry burdens that were never yours to hold. You realize that you have been absorbing opinions, criticisms, and expectations like a sponge. You were influenced by what people thought about you, what they wanted from you, and the roles they needed you to play. But silence breaks this influence. It puts emotional space between you and the world. In that space, you can finally hear your own thoughts without external voices shaping them. You can finally feel your own emotions without being pulled into someone else's chaos. You begin to understand what actually belongs to you. Your dreams, your fears, your hopes, your truth, and what you've been borrowing from others. This clarity is powerful because most people live their entire lives reacting to noise that isn't theirs. Buddhism teaches that the mind becomes clouded when it is constantly filled with external influence, and it becomes clear when it turns inward. Silence is that turning inward. It is the moment when the fog begins to lift and you start recognizing who you are. When the world is not speaking, in silence, you reconnect with your natural energy, the peaceful, grounded, steady energy that lives beneath all the chaos. When you separate yourself from the world's noise, something remarkable happens. You stop being controlled by it. People's negativity no longer directs your emotions. Their expectations no longer shape your decisions. Their judgments no longer define your worth. You become more centered, more aware, and more protective of your inner peace. Silence reminds you that you do not have to carry everything, you only have to carry what belongs to your soul. And once that separation is made, life begins to feel lighter, clearer, and much more manageable. Silence helps you release the illusion of control. One of the biggest reasons life feels heavy is because you keep trying to control things that were never in your control to begin with. You want people to treat you the way you treat them. You want situations to unfold the way you imagine. You want outcomes to match your effort. You want timing to follow your plan, not life's timing. And whenever reality refuses to match your expectations, you feel stressed, frustrated, afraid, or disappointed. This struggle creates inner pressure that builds day after day. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes from attachment to how things should be, how people should act, how life should unfold. The more tightly you hold on to a particular outcome, the more pain you feel when life goes in a different direction. But silence helps you see something that noise hides from you. That control is mostly an illusion, a story your mind tells to feel safe. When you sit in silence, you start noticing how much tension your desire for control has created in your body. Your shoulders feel heavy, your chest feels tight, your breath becomes shallow. Your mind jumps from one anxious thought to another, trying to predict, prepare, and protect itself from every possibility. But in silence, that noise begins to slow down. As your thoughts settle, you begin to see the truth more clearly. You see that you cannot control other people's behavior. You cannot control how they feel about you or what they choose to do. You see that you cannot control the past, no matter how much you replay it. And you cannot control the future, no matter how much you worry about it. You see that life unfolds in its own rhythm, not yours, and trying to force things only creates more emotional resistance. Silence gives you the courage to let go, not in a dramatic way, but in a gentle, grounded way. You begin to realize that letting go does not mean giving up. It means you are no longer trying to carry what is not yours to carry. It means you are choosing peace over pressure, acceptance over resistance, and presence over fear. As you sit in stillness, your mind slowly understands that you are not responsible for managing the universe. You are responsible only for your actions, your responses, and your inner state. This realization is incredibly freeing. The weight that once felt unbearable suddenly becomes lighter. The situations you once wrestled with no longer consume your thoughts. The expectations you placed on yourself soften because you understand that life is not meant to be controlled, it is meant to be lived. And the moment you release the illusion of control, peace naturally enters your life. You stop fighting with reality. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop trying to shape everything into your idea of perfection. Instead, you move with life, not against it, and in that simple shift, suffering begins to fade. Silence teaches you something you rarely learn in the noise of daily life, that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is surrender, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. Because healing begins the moment you stop forcing the world to follow your plan and start allowing it to unfold in the way it is meant to. Silence gives your nervous system space to repair itself. Most people think emotional pain is only in the mind, but the truth is that your body carries just as much of your suffering as your thoughts do. Whenever life becomes too heavy, your nervous system goes into a constant state of alert. Your shoulders tighten, your breathing becomes shallow, your jaw clenches, your stomach knots, and your heart beats faster than it needs to. You may not notice it because you've gotten used to living this way, but your body has been whispering for a long time, trying to tell you that it is overwhelmed. The weight you feel emotionally becomes a weight your body carries physically every single day. The modern world pushes you to stay strong, stay productive, stay busy, stay available, stay responsible, stay connected, and because of that, you rarely get the chance to actually rest. There is always another task to do, another message to answer, another worry to think about, another expectation to meet. You live in a cycle of pressure that never ends. Even when you try to relax, your mind keeps replaying the day. Your emotions stay tense, and your body remains on guard as if something bad might happen any moment. This is what chronic stress feels like. And without silence, that stress keeps building until you feel drained, numb, or completely burnt out. Silence is not merely peaceful, it is medicinal. When you allow yourself even a few minutes of true silence, your breath naturally begins to slow down. Your muscles soften. The tension in your chest loosens, your heartbeat steadies, your body shifts out of survival mode and into healing mode. This gentle shift is powerful because the nervous system cannot repair itself when you are surrounded by noise, chaos, or emotional demands. It needs calm, it needs stillness, it needs quiet. Silence is the environment where your body can finally begin to release the stress it has been carrying for weeks, months, or even years. In the teachings of Buddhism, the body and mind are not separate. What affects the mind affects the body, and what affects the body affects the mind. When your mind is overwhelmed, your body becomes tense. When your body is tense, your mind becomes tired. Silence breaks this cycle. It gives both the mind and body a chance to reset in silence. Your mind stops running, and your body stops defending. The two reconnect in harmony, allowing healing to begin from the inside out. Silence also helps you become aware of sensations you've been ignoring. The tightness in your back, the heaviness in your chest, the fatigue in your bones, the restlessness in your breath. Awareness is the first step to relief. When you acknowledge these signals, your body feels seen, validated, and understood. And just like emotional pain begins to dissolve when you stop avoiding it, physical tension begins to dissolve when you finally sit with it without fear. Silence teaches you to listen not only to your thoughts, but also to your body's quiet cries for relief. Over time, this simple practice changes everything. Your mind becomes clearer, your heart feels lighter, your body feels more grounded, your reactions become calmer. You stop living in constant urgency and start living with more intention. Silence helps you hear your intuition, the voice you keep ignoring. Every person has an inner voice, a natural intelligence, a quiet wisdom, a soft guidance that whispers from within. This voice is not loud, not forceful, not dramatic. It does not shout over your fears or argue with your doubts. It simply speaks the truth in a calm and steady way. But because the world around you is so loud, and because your mind is constantly filled with noise, distractions, and expectations, you often lose connection with that inner guidance. You hear everything else, people's opinions, society's pressures, your own insecurities, but you do not hear yourself. Your intuition is the part of you that sees the truth without needing proof. It senses danger before it becomes visible. It recognizes genuine people from fake ones even before they reveal their true intentions. It knows when a situation is draining you, when a relationship is breaking you, when a path is no longer meant for you, and when you are forcing something that your soul has already outgrown. But because listening to your intuition often requires difficult choices, letting go, walking away, setting boundaries, saying no, facing discomfort, many people silence their intuition and try to follow what feels easier in the moment, even if it costs them long-term peace. This is where silence becomes life-changing. When you finally sit quietly without distractions, without phones, without conversations, without noise, your intuition becomes clearer. It rises from beneath the layers of confusion, fear, and overthinking that kept it hidden. In silence, you begin to hear the thoughts behind your thoughts, the truth beneath the opinions, the wisdom beneath the worries. You begin to hear the something feels off that you kept ignoring, the I need to rest that you kept pushing away, the this situation is hurting me that you kept avoiding, the I deserve better that you kept doubting. Buddhism teaches that clarity comes from stillness. A disturbed mind cannot see clearly, just like muddy water cannot reflect the sky. But when water sits still, the dirt settles and the reflection becomes clear. Silence does the same for your mind. It allows the mental noise to settle. the emotional waves to calm, and the truth to rise naturally in that clarity. Your intuition becomes undeniable. You start to understand what your heart has been trying to tell you for years. Often people say they are confused or lost, but the truth is that they are not listening. The answers are already inside them, but they are buried under stress, expectations, fears, and overthinking. Silence removes those layers one by one. It helps you see what your soul has been trying to communicate through subtle feelings, repeated patterns, and quiet inner sensations. Your intuition is not dramatic, it is consistent. It speaks through a feeling of peace when something is right, and a feeling of tension when something is wrong. In silence, you realize how many times your intuition tried to protect you. When you felt uneasy around someone but gave them another chance. When you felt drained by a situation but stayed anyway. When you knew a decision wasn't right but forced yourself to justify it. Every time you ignored your intuition, life became heavier. Every time you honored it, life became simpler. Silence breaks the cycle of emotional exhaustion. There comes a point in every person's life where they feel emotionally tired in a way that sleep cannot fix. It is a quiet kind of exhaustion, not from physical labor, but from constantly giving, constantly supporting, constantly holding yourself together for the sake of others. You become the listener, the helper, the one who understands, the one who forgives, the one who stays calm when everyone else falls apart. You carry responsibilities that were never spoken but always expected. You give more kindness than you receive. You absorb people's problems because you don't want to see them suffer. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to run out of emotional space for yourself. This is why so many people feel overwhelmed, drained, or numb even when nothing big is happening. Their exhaustion is not from doing too much, it is from feeling too much for too long. When you constantly give your emotional energy to others while never taking time to refill it, you reach a point where even small things feel heavy. Silence is the medicine for this kind of exhaustion. It is the one place where you are not expected to perform, pretend, or carry anything. When you sit in silence, there is no one to comfort, no one to impress, no one to explain yourself to, no one to save. In silence, you stop being the strong one for others and finally become gentle with yourself. This gentle moment is what your soul has been craving for years. In silence, you begin to notice how much emotional weight you've been carrying, not only your own struggles, but the unspoken struggles of others. You realize you have been trying to be the responsible one, the resilient one, the understanding one, without giving yourself the time to breathe or feel. Silence brings those hidden burdens into awareness, and this awareness helps you let go of the weight that does not belong to you. Buddhism teaches that emotional exhaustion happens when you cling to what drains you and resist what nourishes you. Most people are so used to giving that they feel guilty when they try to rest. They feel guilty when they say no. They feel guilty when they put themselves first. But silence teaches you that self-care is not selfishness, it is survival. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot keep giving peace to others while your own mind is drowning. When you embrace silence, you create a boundary between yourself and the world. This boundary is not harsh or cold. It is soft, protective, and necessary. It tells your mind, I am safe right now. It tells your heart, I don't need to hold everything together in this moment. It tells your soul, you can rest now. This simple shift begins to restore your emotional strength in ways you may have forgotten were possible. Over time, silence teaches you how to renew yourself. You learn to recognize when your energy is low. You learn to step away before you reach the point of burnout. You learn to protect your peace instead of giving it away blindly. You learn to say no without feeling ashamed. You learn that you are not responsible for fixing everyone's life, and you are not required to carry everyone's emotions. You have your own healing to protect. You have your own heart to nurture. You have your own inner world to take care of. The world may praise you for being strong, for being reliable, for being the one people depend on. But you cannot continue living as a hero for others while neglecting the wounded parts of yourself. In silence, you remember who you truly are. Life has a way of pulling you away from yourself. Over time, you begin to lose touch with the person you used to be. You get caught in responsibilities, expectations, stress, routines, relationships, and constant survival. You become a version of yourself, shaped by pressure instead of truth. Without noticing it, you start living according to what the world wants, not what your soul needs. You start measuring your worth by productivity, approval, and performance. You begin to believe that you are only valuable when you are useful, only worthy when you are strong, and only lovable when you are perfect. Slowly, this distance from your true self becomes painful, but you don't know how to return because the noise of life keeps pulling you further away. This is why silence is not just helpful, it is essential. Silence is the place where the world stops pulling you, and your soul finally has the chance to pull you back. In silence, the layers you built around yourself begin to fall away. The versions of you that were created to please others begin to soften. The masks you wore to survive begin to loosen. The roles you played, the strong one, the calm one, the responsible one, the achiever, the caregiver, all begin to fade. And underneath all these layers, you start to reconnect with the real youth you that existed before life became loud. In silence, you begin to see yourself clearly. You see your fears not as signs of weakness, but as parts of you that need compassion. You see your dreams not as unrealistic fantasies, but as messages from your deeper self. You see your pain not as punishment, but as the echo of experiences that shaped you. You see your needs, your boundaries, your values, your truth, all the things you ignored because life kept moving fast. Silence slows everything down so your inner world can speak again. Buddhism teaches that your true self is never lost, it is only covered. Covered by fear, covered by expectations, covered by pain, covered by noise. The core of who you are, your essence, is always present. It is calm, wise, compassionate, patient, and deeply connected to life. But to hear the voice of that essence, you must step away from the world for a moment and create space for it to speak. Silence is the doorway to that inner space. It is the environment where your mind becomes calm enough to perceive your real nature. As you sit in stillness, something extraordinary begins to unfold. You start remembering the parts of yourself you abandoned. You remember the dreams you once had. You remember the things that brought you joy before you became busy. You remember the inner strength you had before life toughened you, the softness you lost while trying to be strong for everyone else, the inner peace that existed before heartbreak, disappointment, and stress took over. Silence reconnects you with the version of yourself that life tried to bury, the version that is whole, pure, and untouched by struggle. In silence, you also realize that so many things you chase, validation, perfection, approval, recognition, are illusions that keep you moving away from your true self. You begin to see how much suffering came from trying to be someone you're not. Silence strips these illusions away one by one. You discover that your worth is not determined by how much you achieve or how much you give. Your worth is intrinsic. It exists simply because you exist. This is one of the deepest realizations that arises only when you step into silence. Over time, as silence becomes a part of your life, you begin to move differently. You start making decisions from a place of authenticity rather than fear. You begin to trust yourself more. You begin to protect your peace more fiercely. You begin to walk away from things that do not align with who you truly are. You begin to create space for people and experiences that reflect your real values. You stop pretending. You stop forcing. You stop carrying unnecessary weight. You begin to live as yourself, not as a reflection of people's expectations. Silence becomes a mirror that shows you your soul. And once you see yourself clearly, you can never go back to the old way of living. You become more grounded, more peaceful, more aware. You understand yourself deeply. You feel connected to life in a way you haven't felt for years. You begin to live with purpose, not pressure. You begin to walk with clarity, not confusion. You begin to embrace the present moment rather than escaping it. This is what true healing looks like. A return to yourself. Silence teaches you how to let go of what you cannot change. One of the deepest forms of suffering comes from holding on to things that are already gone, already broken, or already outside your influence. You hold on to people who have moved on. You hold on to memories that only hurt you. You hold on to mistakes you cannot undo, to regrets you cannot reverse, to moments you wish you could rewrite. You hold on to old versions of yourself, old expectations, old dreams that no longer fit the person you are becoming. And without realizing it, this constant holding becomes a silent burden that follows you everywhere. Most people do not know how to let go because they never learned how to sit with themselves long enough to understand what they are holding. Life moves fast, people move faster, and you get swept into the next moment before you've healed from the previous one. You keep carrying emotional baggage into new chapters, hoping that time alone will make it disappear. But time does not heal what you refuse to confront, only awareness does, and awareness grows in silence. Silence is the space where you finally stop running, stop resisting, stop distracting yourself. It is in this quiet space that you begin to see clearly what you have been holding. You realize that some things ended long ago, but you kept them alive in your mind. You realize that some people hurt you deeply, but you continued carrying their words as if they were truths. You realize that certain situations were never in your control, yet you punished yourself for outcomes you could not have prevented. You begin to see how tightly your heart has been gripping things that were never meant to be permanent. Buddhism teaches that the root of suffering is attachment, not only to people, but to moments, expectations, and identities. Attachment is the belief that things should remain the same, that people should behave the way you want, that life should unfold according to your plan. But life does not freeze for anyone. Everything changes, everyone changes, every moment changes. And the more you cling to what is no longer here, the more pain you create inside yourself. Silence gently shows you this truth without judgment. In silence, your mind becomes soft enough to accept reality instead of fighting it. You begin to understand that letting go is not a sudden act. It is a slow, compassionate release that starts within the heart. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" This shift is the beginning of emotional maturity. As you sit in stillness, you feel the weight of the things you have been holding, and for the first time, you allow yourself to put them down. You take a deep breath and your body feels lighter. You allow the past to be the past instead of dragging it into the present. You stop trying to fix what is already finished. You stop trying to hold on to people who were never meant to stay. You stop forcing yourself into timelines that no longer fit your path. You begin to trust that whatever left your life created space for something better to enter. In silence, you learn that letting go is not about forgetting, nor is it about pretending something did not affect you. It is about freeing yourself from the emotional chain that kept you tied to moments that were already over. It is about honoring the experience, accepting its impact, taking the lesson, and releasing the pain. You stop resisting the flow of life, and instead you begin to move with it. And as you let go, something beautiful happens. New energy enters your life, space opens, clarity grows, peace returns. You feel a gentle strength rising within you, the kind of strength that does not come from holding on tightly, but from having the courage to release what no longer aligns with your soul. Silence teaches you that letting go is not loss, it is liberation. It is a return to your own center. Most of the pain you feel does not come from the present moment, it comes from the mind's habit of leaving the present. You suffer because your mind keeps traveling into the past, replaying memories you cannot change, reliving moments that hurt you, analyzing old conversations, punishing yourself for choices you made with the limited awareness you had at the time. And when the mind is not living in the past, it runs into the future, imagining worst-case scenarios, creating fears that have not happened, worrying about outcomes you cannot predict, and trying to solve problems that do not even exist yet. This constant movement between what was and what might be becomes a mental prison that steals your peace, your clarity, and your ability to breathe. Silence is the doorway back to the present moment, the only place where life is actually happening. When you sit in silence, the mind slowly begins to calm. The noise reduces, the mental storms soften. The constant movement between past and future begins to lose strength. Your awareness shifts from what your thoughts are showing you to what is actually happening inside and around you right now. You notice your breath, your heartbeat, the sensations in your body, and the emotional truth of this moment. This return to the present is the beginning of freedom, because the present is the only space where suffering cannot control you. Buddhism teaches that the present moment is not just important, it is everything. The past is memory. The future is imagination. Only this moment is real. But because life is so loud, stressful, and overwhelming, You spend most of your existence anywhere but here. Silence brings you back gently. It teaches you to stop running. It teaches you to stop living on mental autopilot. It teaches you to experience life as it is, not as your mind fears it might be. In silence, you begin to notice how heavy your thoughts have been, how tightly you've been holding on to fear, how deeply your mind has been stuck in old narratives. You begin to feel how much energy is wasted trying to rewrite the past or predict the future. And as you sit quietly, the real truth appears. This moment, this breath, is the only place where healing can happen. You begin to understand that peace is not something you find. It is something you return to when you stop resisting the present moment. As you stay in silence, your awareness deepens. You realize that the present moment is not empty, it is full of life. It holds clarity, softness, truth, and calm. It allows you to see things clearly without the filters of fear or memory. You begin to appreciate the stillness, the simplicity, the softness of just being here. You notice how much beauty exists when the mind is not rushing. You hear the quiet wisdom inside you that says, right now you are safe. Right now nothing is missing. Right now you are enough. This is the healing that only the present moment can give. When you return to the present, your relationship with life changes. You become less reactive because you are not acting from old pain or future fear. You become more patient because you are not rushing through life. You become more compassionate because you are grounded enough to see others clearly. You become more aware of your needs, your limits, your truth. You stop carrying the emotional weight of yesterday and stop fearing the uncertainty of tomorrow. You breathe deeper, you live slower, you think clearer, you feel more alive. Silence teaches you that the present moment is a sanctuary, a place where your mind can rest and your heart can breathe. It teaches you that most suffering comes from the mind's movement, not from reality itself. It teaches you that life becomes lighter when you stop dragging the past behind you and stop trying to control the future ahead. It teaches you that healing happens one breath at a time, one moment at a time, one gentle return to the present at a time. And the more you practice silence, the easier this return becomes. You begin to recognize when your mind is drifting. You gently bring it back. You begin to catch yourself when you start overthinking. You breathe and return. You begin to let go of the belief that your peace is somewhere in the future. You begin to see that your peace has always been here, hidden under the noise, waiting for you to slow down and listen. Silence teaches you that the present moment is not just a place, it is your true home. And every time life feels heavy, returning to this home becomes the most powerful healing you can give yourself. When life becomes heavy, most people think the answer is to push harder, stay stronger, move faster, and pretend they are unaffected. But the truth is that no one heals by fighting their own heart. Healing does not happen in the noise, in the rush, or in the pressure to appear okay. Healing begins in the quiet places. You rarely visit the places inside you that become visible only when everything else becomes still. Silence is not the absence of life, it is the return to life. It is the space where you finally meet yourself without the world's demands shaping your thoughts. It is the moment where you stop performing strength for others and allow yourself to simply be human. In silence, you hear the cry of your own soul, the whisper of your intuition, the wisdom you have ignored, and the emotions you never allowed yourself to feel. Silence does not make your problems disappear, but it gives you the clarity, strength, and compassion needed to face them with a calmer mind and a steadier heart. Through silence, you learn that not every battle deserves your energy. Not every emotion needs to be acted on. Not every thought deserves to be believed. And not every person deserves a place in your inner world. You learn to observe without becoming overwhelmed. You learn to breathe through your triggers instead of reacting from them. You learn to protect your peace instead of giving it away freely. You learn to let go of what is no longer aligned with your path, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. Silence teaches you that your worth is not based on how much you carry, how strong you appear, or how perfectly you manage your life. Your worth simply exists untouched by circumstances. You begin to understand that the heavy seasons are not punishments, they are invitations. They invite you to slow down, to reflect, to shed what is no longer needed, to remember who you are beneath everything you've been taught to be. They guide you back to the present moment, the only place where true healing can happen. As you embrace silence, you stop drowning in the noise of the world and start listening to the truth within you. You realize that peace was never outside of you. It was always waiting behind the distractions, the expectations, and the emotional storms. You rediscover the strength that feels natural, not forced the clarity that feels steady, not chaotic the calm that feels real, not performed. Slowly you begin to resonate by becoming louder, but by becoming more centered, more aware, more whole. So when life feels heavy, go silent not to escape life, but to return to yourself. Go silent so your heart can breathe. Go silent so your mind can clear. Go silent so your soul can guide you gently back to the path you were meant to walk. Healing does not begin when you try to be strong. For everyone, it begins when you finally choose to be gentle with yourself. In silence, you rediscover the you that has been waiting to be heard. And once you meet that version of yourself, you will never again fear the heaviness of life because you will know exactly where to return when your spirit needs to heal.